Good morning. Welcome to NTD.
Good morning. Here are today's top stories. The Senate passes a $95 billion foreign aid bill after months of delay. Hear what Senate leaders and the Pentagon had to say about aid to Ukraine.
The former boss of the National Enquirer resumed his testimony yesterday. Plus, both sides argue on whether Trump violated the gag order and why Trump thinks the order is unconstitutional.
Anti-Israel demonstrations continue to spread across college campuses. A Berkeley student says Jewish kids on campus feel like they have a target on their backs.
New York is looking to clarify the meaning of tenant after multiple accused squatters in the state. More on a new measure Governor Hochul signed into law this week.
Tennessee lawmakers pass a measure to allow teachers to carry guns at school. The details of how that would work.
A labor complaint reveals allegations against Boeing, and new rules from the Department of Labor and the FTC could affect millions of workers. The host of Business Matters breaks it down.
An award-winning film depicting a nationwide persecution in China was screened on Capitol Hill. The movie tells the story of university students who risked their lives to expose a brutal campaign by the Chinese regime.
This is NTD Good Morning. Live from our global headquarters, here are Evelyn Lee and Kevin Hogan.
Welcome to NTD.
Good morning again. Today is Wednesday, April 24th.
Yes, Evelyn, the U.S. is preparing that aid to Ukraine with the Pentagon getting $1 billion worth of artillery shells, anti-tank weapons, and air defenses ready, according to Reuters.
Yeah, significant. But even with that, some analysts are saying that Ukraine probably still might not want to launch a counteroffensive, despite all that.
Just defensive purposes as of now.
All right, that's topping the news. The Senate passed a $95 billion foreign aid package last night after months of controversy and delay.
President Biden says he's going to sign the measure today. Senators approved the bill in a measure that would force TikTok's Chinese owner to sell its U.S. assets.
The House added the TikTok bill into the package after some revisions last week. NTD's Jeremy Sandberg has more on the bill's passage.
The Senate, in a 79-18 vote Tuesday, approved 4 bills passed by the House. Senators merged the bills into one package. The $95 billion national security supplemental is mostly military aid for Ukraine, Israel, and Taiwan, and an ultimatum for TikTok. Senate Leader Chuck Schumer says the U.S. sent a message that it won't turn its back and will do everything to safeguard democracy.
We tell our allies, we stand with you. We tell our adversaries, don't mess with us.
The supplemental is $61 billion for Ukraine, roughly $26 billion for Israel, and just over $8 billion for deterrence against the Chinese Communist Party in the Indo-Pacific region. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky thanked Congress, calling the measure vital.
Alliances matter.
Senate Minority Leader McConnell declared it was time to reaffirm some basic truths.
Peace, prosperity, and security are not accidents. They're products of American leadership and American sacrifice.
Senator Mitt Romney said he wished Congress would have moved more quickly.
But Speaker Johnson got to the right place and is allowing the majority of the representatives, Republican and Democrat, to make a decision.
The Pentagon on Tuesday said the U.S. could be delivering aid to Ukraine within days.
You know, we need to have a law first, but depending on what that aid is, and as you've seen in the past, we provide a variety of aid. Anticipating this, we're doing everything we can to lean forward.
The House added a TikTok bill to the package last week, extending a deadline for the Chinese regime-linked ByteDance to sell. A TikTok ban from U.S. app stores looms if ByteDance doesn't sell its U.S. assets. Some lawmakers felt 6 months was too short a window for a high-stake deal, moving the deadline to 9 months, with a possible 3-month extension pending a sale. The supplemental also slaps new sanctions on Iran. The aid package could be the last for Ukraine until after the general elections, when the White House, the House, and a third of the Senate are up for grabs. Jeremy Sandberg, NTD News.
And we're bringing in Bradley Devlin now for some more insight on this. He is a political editor for the American Conservative. Good morning, Bradley. Now, there was a version of this bill back in February which didn't pass. Walk me through what has changed with this one now.
John made some tweaks on the fringes. They've considerable amount more to Israel, some humanitarian aid for Gaza to get more progressive left-leaning on side. Centrist Democrats were already on side given the Israel aid that was provided and the Ukraine aid that was provided in this package that was separated into 4 separate chunks and then given to one as one bill to the Senate. Then you have, other parts of the Ukraine bill turned into foreign aid, a little bit more of inspector general stuff here and there. And of course, the addition of TikTok ban and the Indo-Pacific aid that is focused predominantly on rearmament against the Chinese government. So that is what got people interested in this bill, opposed to the Senate bill that kind of left a lot of those somewhat conservative priorities out in the Senate version.
I see. Now, President Biden is about to sign it, and sorry, there was some audio issues in the beginning of this answer. Can you break down what exactly it entails, what it means for those receiving countries, and especially Ukraine? When will they see the results of this bill?
Yeah, the U.S. government has put in a rush on the Ukraine aid. Whether or not that actually changes Ukraine's situation on the ground, I don't think so. I think it highly unlikely. Obviously, we are going to be in the wet season for quite some time. If you remember their counteroffensive from 2023, well, it was literally stuck in the mud for a really, really long period of time. And then it ended up going nowhere. And this was before the United States decided that they were going to slow the amount of aid that they were sending to Ukraine. As for Israel, Israel has made 100 different weapons purchases from the United States from October 7th. They've proved that they can wage this war without U.S. financial aid. I think this is a lot of just senators and representatives wanting to pat themselves on the back, make it seem like they're doing something when it doesn't actually change a lot of the material situations on the ground. Where I think that it does change the material conditions, however, is in Taiwan, where a lot of the aid is conditioned on materials that would actually help Taiwan stave off Chinese invasion. The problem with Taiwan as of late has been its military is more obsessed with military aesthetics and not necessarily the types of modern military equipment that it would need to stave off an amphibious assault from China. So I think that's a step in the right direction, but that measly amount of Taiwan money does not justify the billions and billions of dollars the United States is giving to 2 unpopular wars, one unpopular with the Republicans in the Ukraine war and one unpopular with Democrats in the Israel war. I just don't think that anything justifies that. And the procedural maneuver is kind of disgraceful when you think about it, with the Senate and the House just deciding that they're going to lump all these things together.
Right. And that's a very interesting take on this. I also want to touch on the TikTok bill because that was part of that. It will give ByteDance up to a year to divest from TikTok. But do you still see a way for the app to avoid that?
To avoid a sale? Yeah, they're going to challenge it in court. Depends on what the court says, because this is targeted towards company. But we target companies all the time. We target companies in sanctions. We target companies in tariffs. We target companies for national security reasons. So I don't think that the fact that the bill is naming ByteDance and TikTok is going to be a strong enough case for TikTok to make the argument that it should be excused from what the U.S. government says. I do think they'll end up coming through with the sale. I think they'll be compensated very handsomely for it. But if they do lose in court, I expect a little bit of brinkmanship on ByteDance's part, right? They're going to push this to the edge, see if they can't get, 18 to 35-year-olds really, really upset with the American government and see if they can't get them to back off.
Got it. Thanks. Let's keep an eye on it. Bradley Devlin, I appreciate your time this morning.
Thanks, guys.
And it's now 200 days into the war in the Gaza Strip, and Iran-backed terrorist groups are still able to launch attacks into Israel.
Residents in Israel were celebrating Passover at the beach on Tuesday when alarms sounded, sending many running for cover. NTD's Jason Perry has the update.
On Tuesday, Israel Defense Forces reported striking a significant member of the Iran-backed Hezbollah terrorist group in Lebanon. The IDF also reported striking other places in southern Lebanon, including Hezbollah terrorist infrastructure. Meanwhile, in Israel, residents who went to the beach to celebrate Passover found themselves running for shelter as alarms sounded. This comes as Hezbollah reported launching its deepest attack in Israel since the war began and struck an Israeli military base. But the Israeli military said it had no knowledge of any of its facilities being hit, only that it had intercepted 2 aerial targets off Israel's northern coast. Also on Tuesday, terrorists in the Gaza Strip fired rockets into southern Israel. According to a local government official, Israel intercepted all 4 of the rockets and no injuries were reported. Israel also reported striking several terror targets in the Gaza Strip, including operational tunnel shafts, military structures, and a launcher containing rockets that were ready to fire toward Israel. The IDF said they warned civilians to temporarily evacuate from these areas before the strikes. In another development, the Palestinian Authority reported finding several bodies in a mass grave near a hospital in the southern Gaza Strip. The Palestinian political group said the bodies were discovered after Israeli troops left the hospital. The IDF said they had intelligence that hostages were buried next to the hospital and that Israeli troops examined the corpses in an attempt to locate the bodies of hostages in a respectful manner. State Department Deputy Spokesperson Vedant Patel said the reports of mass graves in the Gaza Strip were troubling and that the U.S. is working with Israel to gather more information. Jason Perry, NTD News.
Day 7 of the historic campaign finance trial against former President Trump, the former National Enquirer boss returned to the stand, but not before both sides argued about the prosecution's request for gag order sanctions.
As he left the courthouse, Trump said the gag order is unconstitutional. NTD's Arlene Richards brings us the update.
After attorneys debated whether former President Trump violated the gag order, former National Enquirer boss David Pecker returned to the stand. The judge did not make a decision on the gag order, but Trump commented on it.
Well, I think the gag order is totally unconstitutional. Can't even allow articles to be put in. As an example, these are articles that were over the last day and a half. They're very good articles. They say the case is a sham. And it shouldn't even be tried. It shouldn't have been submitted. And I don't even know if you're allowed to put them in. We have a gag order, which to me is totally unconstitutional. I'm not allowed to talk, but people are allowed to talk about me.
Pecker was granted immunity by prosecutors to testify about his so-called catch-and-kill strategies. Monday, Pecker candidly explained, "We used checkbook journalism and we paid for stories." He said during the 2016 presidential election, he purchased the rights to the Stormy Daniels affair allegations in order to shield Trump from embarrassment. Prosecutors are looking to establish that this case is about election fraud and that Pecker purchased damaging stories to benefit Trump while he was running for president. In the indictment, prosecutors did not identify any underlying crime that Trump was allegedly trying to cover up, which is required in order to elevate the 34 counts of financial records fraud to felonies. Through Pecker's testimony, prosecutors, for the first time, attempted to introduce an alleged conspiracy under New York election law, which prohibits conspiracies to promote the election of a specific candidate through unlawful means. The defense objected to the testimony, and the judge stopped it. Trump has said that Judge Juan Merchan is taking him off the campaign trail. Pecker testified for just over 2 hours in the last 2 days. The judge is expected to rule on the gag order sanctions by Thursday. Arlene Richards, NTD News.
And all eyes on Pennsylvania, where another round of presidential primaries concluded yesterday.
And along with that, primary races for the Senate and the House. NTD's Jeremy Sandberg has the results.
Voters headed to the polls across Pennsylvania on Tuesday to cast their ballots in the 2024 primary election. Unofficial election results this morning, according to the state of Pennsylvania, show President Biden with more than 93% of the vote. Former President Trump got over 83%. Former Ambassador Nikki Haley, who dropped out of the race in March, received over 16% of the Republican vote, suggesting some Republicans are looking for an alternative to Trump. Likewise, Muslim American voters mounted an abandoned Biden campaign to protest the president's handling of the Israel-Hamas war. The organization Uncommitted PA said it was aiming for 40,000 uncommitted votes. Pennsylvania did not offer an uncommitted option on its ballot. It's currently unclear how many write-in votes were part of the movement. Biden faced similar efforts in battleground states like Michigan, Arizona, Wisconsin, and North Carolina. Biden and Trump clinched their party nominations last month, but have both campaigned heavily in Pennsylvania, a swing state crucial in both 2016 and 2020. Pennsylvania is politically divided and has a sizable number of electoral votes.
Okay, I voted for Donald J. Trump, and I voted for him the last time. Was very, very disappointed because he did an excellent job, and I would vote for him again and again.
I think it's an important election. I think they all are. I think this one in particular, we've got to keep Trump out. I wish we had two different candidates to choose from, but the ones that we have are what we have, and I'm happy to vote for Biden.
Further down the ballot, voters also selected nominees in competitive primaries for Congress, the state legislature, and 3 statewide offices. There was a particular focus on Pennsylvania's 12th district, where Democratic Congresswoman Summer Lee defeated a primary challenger. Lee has been a fierce critic of Biden's support for Israel. Meanwhile, incumbent Senator Bob Casey, a Democrat, and his Republican challenger Dave McCormick were both unopposed in their primaries. The November race is expected to be close and could help decide if Democrats retain control of the Senate. Jeremy Sandberg, NTD News.
President Biden is set to score a major union endorsement today. It's from North America's Building Trades Unions, or NABTU, which has 3 million members nationwide. Biden will appear at the union's conference in Washington, D.C. today to officially get the nod. Leaders say the president has his infrastructure bill largely to thank for their endorsement. The Teamsters are members of NABTU, but they abstained from yesterday's board vote, according to CNN, which cited people briefed on the proceedings. The Teamsters will endorse a candidate after their upcoming convention.
Former Congressman George Santos ended his bid for New York's 1st congressional district yesterday. Santos, who was running as an independent, said he did not want to take votes away from the Republican incumbent, Nick LaLota. The House expelled Santos last year. He's facing nearly 24 federal charges accusing him of fraud and other crimes. Santos announced last month his plans to run for a different seat than the one that he held on Long Island, but he changed course yesterday. Santos said while he has policy differences with LaLota, he does not want to potentially hand the seat over to Democrats. The GOP currently holds a razor-thin majority in the House.
And New York Governor Kathy Hochul is moving to address a growing squatting problem in her state.
Hochul signed part of the state budget Monday to change how New York law defines tenants. The law took effect immediately.
State lawmakers voted to change the definition in a bill passed last weekend. They said it aims to empower police instead of having squatting cases first go through court.
The bill changed the state's property law to say squatters are not tenants and therefore not entitled to tenant protections.
Hochul's plan has incentives for affordable housing and $500 million towards building up to 15,000 new homes.
The state's fiscal 2025 plan also includes measures to protect tenants from unreasonable rent increases. Stay with us. Anti-Israel demonstrations continue to spread across college campuses. A Berkeley student says Jewish kids on campus feel like they have a target on their backs.
And how Trump is reacting to President Biden's comments on the campus protests. Iris Tao has more on that, plus what Biden said about abortion while campaigning in Florida.
Is your shower trying to tell you something? Is getting in and out of the bathtub becoming a safety concern? Are you worried about the cost of a bathroom remodel that could go on for weeks and weeks? Well, now you can have a gorgeous new bath or shower that's safer at a price you can afford with a one-day jacuzzi bath remodel.
It was done the same day. We did not have to wait. It is amazing.
Working with the jacuzzi design consultants, it was a seamless process, and there really is an option for everyone.
I would give this whole experience an A+. I definitely wish I would have called sooner.
Jacuzzi has been making water feel great for more than 65 years, so you know it's a brand you can trust, and their products come with a lifetime warranty for a style you'll love for years to come. Plus, there has never been a better time to buy. We're waiving all installation costs and postponing all payments for up to 1 year. There are so many designs to choose from, including my Christina Preferred collection. Plus, we offer free, personalized, in-home design services to build the bath you've always wanted, right in your own space. And let's talk about accessories. From soft close shower doors and adjustable shower heads to features like grab bars and custom seats that combine safety and style to keep you feeling comfortable and independent for years to come. Plus, cleanup's a breeze with no grimy grout and no scrubbing. It just rinses clean. It's never been easier. Get your free design consultation, schedule your one-day installation, and start loving your new bath or shower right away.
Call or go online right now for a limited time offer. Only weeks left to get waived installation and no interest and no payments for up to 1 year. Go to jacuzzibathremodel.com or call 800-990-3537. That's 800-990-3537. Call now.
Medicine has moved from making us well to making us better than well.
Bigger, faster, stronger, smarter, to even make human beings, in a sense, superhuman.
The big product of the 21st century are going to be bodies and minds.
This new gene editing technology known as CRISPR is to genetics and genetic technologies what the atomic bomb was to physics.
It's like doing surgery with an axe.
We're taking genetically modified organisms and we're injecting them in little kids' arms. We just shoot them right into the vein.
It's experimental for a reason. If you want to be a lab rat, go for it. I was.
It is the biggest scam of all time, and we're living in it.
Welcome back. Anti-Israel protests have continued to spread to more college campuses. This after mass arrests at similar demonstrations at a handful of mostly East Coast colleges in recent days.
NTD's Daniel Monahan has more on the expanding protests, which have now reached the Midwest and California.
In the Midwest on Tuesday, a demonstration on the University of Michigan campus grew to nearly 40 tents, and 9 anti-Israel protesters at the University of Minnesota were arrested after police took down an encampment in front of the library. On the West Coast, California State Polytechnic University announced that its campus would be closed through Wednesday after demonstrators occupied a building Monday night. 3 protesters were arrested. Also in California at Berkeley, demonstrators have set up an encampment where they vow to remain until demands are met. Those include the university canceling all contracts with any Israeli college or companies connected to arms suppliers and formally recognizing Israel's actions as genocide. Jewish Berkeley law student Milton Zerman says Israeli students on campus feel like they have a target on their backs.
And that's clear ethnic discrimination. It's discrimination on the basis of nationality, and I think it's disgraceful.
In Massachusetts, over 20 tents with pro-Palestine signage were set up at Massachusetts Institute of Technology Tuesday morning. The tents display numerous Palestinian flags and signs demanding MIT stop providing, quote, support for the Israeli occupation forces. Meanwhile, Harvard University in Massachusetts has tried to stay ahead of protests by locking most gates into its famed Harvard Yard and limiting access to those with school identification. Critics of the protests, including prominent Republican members of Congress, have stepped up accusations of anti-Semitism, harassment, and calls for violence by protesters. Columbia University students came back for in-person classes in Manhattan on Tuesday, but demonstrators on the campus continue to occupy the West Lawn. They are calling on the university to cancel the funding of projects connected to Israel. This masked student, who would only identify herself as W, used inflammatory language to describe Israel.
This is what we are here for, calling for an end to genocide and for Columbia to financially divest from the violent Zionist settler entity.
The expanding protests included hundreds of demonstrators gathered near Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer's home on Tuesday. The gathering was organized by the Jewish Voice for Peace group.
Senator Schumer, your Jewish constituents and the vast majority of the U.S. demands stop arming Israel! Stop arming Israel!
Following speeches, protesters moved to block the streets surrounding Grand Army Plaza, and several were arrested by NYPD officers. Daniel Monahan, NTD News.
And the campus protests sparking a new fight between President Biden and former President Trump. While one calls the protests a disgrace, the other is trying to strike a careful balance. NTD's White House correspondent Iris Tao has the details.
Former President Trump on Tuesday speaking out against anti-Israel protests on college campuses and blaming them on President Biden.
What's going on at the college level and the colleges, Columbia, NYU and others, is a disgrace, and it's really on Biden. He has the wrong signal, he's got the wrong tone, he's got the wrong words, he doesn't know who he's backing, and it's a mess.
Trump's criticism comes after Biden on Monday said,
I condemn the anti-Semitic protests. I also condemn those who don't understand what's going on with the Palestinians.
That says President Biden is facing pressure from some of his own voter base over his support for Israel. And another issue at the center of the 2024 presidential race, abortion. And President Biden in Tampa, Florida on Tuesday again targets Trump specifically over a 6-week abortion ban that's set to take effect in Florida in just a few days.
There's one person responsible for this nightmare, and he's acknowledged and he brags about it, Donald Trump.
Meanwhile, Florida Governor Ron DeSantis on Tuesday slammed Biden's visit.
Floridians are not buying what Joe Biden is selling, and in November, we're going to play an instrumental role in sending him back to Delaware where he belongs.
And Biden's campaign is now calling Florida a battleground state. That's a sign that Biden is eyeing Florida, a state that voted for Republicans in the last 2 presidential elections. Reporting from the White House, Iris Tao, NTD News.
For more on the ideological backdrop of anti-Semitism gripping U.S. college campuses, we bring in Kenneth Abramowitz. He's a threat analyst and the author of The Multi-Front War, Defending America from Political Islam, China, Russia, Pandemics, and Radical Strife. It's great to speak with you again, Kenneth. What is the ideological underpinning of anti-Semitism that leads to threats and violence taking place against Jewish students on American college campuses?
Well, it's a complicated question, but I'll try to make it simple. Judaism represents the rule of law from the Bible, the Old Testament, the Torah. And 3,800 years ago, followed 2,000 years ago by Christianity, and together we became Judeo-Christian society, again based on the rule of law, the Old and New Testament put together, plus the Constitution, Bill of Rights. The anti-Semites are basically criminals, and they hate the rule of law, and they want to create their own rule of law and their own God. So it's a revolt against what I would say the rule of law.
Kenneth, House Speaker Mike Johnson is set to visit Columbia University, where we're seeing all these protests against Israel taking place, and he wrote on social media the other day that these are not peaceful protests; these are anti-Semitic mobs. Just want to point that out here. We've spoken in the past about the Reds and the Greens, the communists and the radical Islamists, that is. What influence do the so-called Greens have in shaping or distorting the culture of American higher education?
Well, I monitor 7 forms of warfare. Most people think warfare is just like World War II. Things blow up, also known as kinetic warfare. But there's also cultural warfare, where you fight with words. And so what we're watching is cultural warfare on the campuses, and the fingerprints of our enemies are all over the place. There's the Muslim Brotherhood, Qatar in particular, and Iran in particular. Their money and influence is fueling this cultural warfare. And there's also probably fingerprints from Russia and China. So it's a golden opportunity for our outside enemies to agitate against the Jews, which are low-hanging fruit. They're actually after the Christians. It's just that the Jews are in the way.
Kenneth, can you elaborate a little more, maybe provide any hard evidence to support that claim that you have here?
Well, it's not like I work for the CIA and I have agents, monitoring flows. It's just that I watch the words coming out of Iran and Qatar, the Muslim Brotherhood, words coming out of Russia and China. And Russia and China are the reds, Qatar and Iran are the greens. And they're all seeking world domination. They all want to take over the world. And short term, they want to take over their regions. Long term, they want to take over America. So they're trying to destabilize America. And they're using anti-Semitism as a technique to destabilize America. And by the way, 90% of the protesters I call useful idiots. It's the 10% who are agents of either Russia, China, Qatar, or Iran, and creating this mess. And then the administration is not doing their job. I mean, all these people should be in jail for trespassing. And so the administrations of Colombia and other places like that, by the way, I went to Colombia, have allowed anti-Semitism to take over their universities. So Colombia is now systemically anti-Semitic. And so they've been fostering this environment for 25 years now. And it's permeated the organization, and they're in their own trap. They don't know how to get out of their own trap. And it's basically time to fire all the administrators, and the people who donate money should stop. And basically we need regime change, so to speak, at Columbia and the other Ivies.
Thank you for bringing the big picture here and sharing your perspective with us. Kenneth Abramowitz, threat analyst and author.
Pleasure to be with you.
Coming up, Tennessee lawmakers pass a bill to allow teachers to carry guns at school. The details of how that would work.
Bump stocks have been the center of controversy, with some Second Amendment activists calling it a political spectacle rather than a genuine interest in public safety. We have the analysis coming up.
A cultural Marxist takeover visiting the U.S. That's according to an author. She says it's reached the end stages. Find out how minds are being distorted and how to break free from the subversion.
Have you ever helped a fellow veteran?
Of course.
Yes. Have you ever asked for help yourself?
It's always tough, right?
I always feel like I can solve my own problems, but eventually, you just can't deal with it on your own.
And you start to question, maybe people would be better off without me. When you realize that you're not alone, once you take that first step, there's so much support.
What if you could whiten your teeth by simply brushing your teeth? Now you can with Smile Actives, the teeth whitening breakthrough that safely gets your teeth white and keeps them white every day, just by brushing your teeth.
I never thought that whitening my teeth could be so easy. I just put the gel on the brush, the toothpaste on it, brush, and I can see my white teeth.
Simply add Smile Actives to any toothpaste, and our patented PolyClean technology activates into a powerful microfoam that penetrates into the enamel surface to safely lift and remove stains.
You need a simple way to whiten your teeth, without strips, without trays, without going to the dentist. And it was about time that a product was developed that you would be able to do that with just brushing.
And now, Smile Actives is even better with new Pro Whitening Gel with 33% greater whitening power, clinically shown to whiten teeth faster, up to 8 shades. 100% of users saw whiter teeth. On food stains, coffee and wine stains, even on veneers, crowns, and dentures.
I eat the blueberries, I drink the coffee, and I know that Smile Actives will keep my teeth white every day.
If you could use something so easy like Smile Actives to take yellow teeth to white teeth, why wouldn't you?
Why spend hundreds of dollars for whitening treatments at the dentist when now you can whiten your teeth with new Smile Actives Pro Whitening Gel every time you brush your teeth? Call or go to smileactives.com and for a limited time get new Pro Whitening Gel for just $24.95. Order in the next 5 minutes and buy one, get one absolutely free for just $24.95. That's 2 for 1 and save 58%. We'll even include free shipping. Get your teeth whiter guaranteed or return it within 60 days for your money back.
I smile every day now.
The difference is literally night and day.
So now I'm always smiling, always choosing, because now my teeth are much whiter.
This offer is not available in stores, so call or click now before the special buy one, get one free offer goes away.
The tempting online world is encroaching on our campus. Is unplugging cables and confiscating phones the solution to protect our children? No, we just need a clean multimedia platform. Join Ganjing Campus to leverage premium channel features, professional development courses, and kindness event toolkits tailored for teachers. Build a truly positive and interactive classroom community. Foster a pure and delightful learning environment for children.
Good to have you back. Guns in schools could soon be a reality in Tennessee.
A bill that gives teachers the ability to be armed in school passed the State House yesterday.
The bill requires educators who want to have concealed weapons to pass a background check and have 40 hours of firearm safety training. School employees will also have to have psychological evaluations and additional training on an annual basis.
The Tennessee Senate previously passed the bill, and it now heads to the Governor Bill Lee's desk for a signature, which is expected.
About half of U.S. states allow teachers or other employees with concealed carry permits to carry guns on school property in some form.
Gun control advocates in Tennessee opposed the bill. The move comes just over a year after a shooter killed 3 children and 3 adults at a Christian school in Nashville.
The Supreme Court is poised to make a decision regarding the prohibition of bump stocks. Those are devices that increase the rate of fire for semi-automatic rifles.
We spoke to gun shop owners in California to see what they have to say about this case. NTD's BJ Khan has the story.
The legality of a controversial weapon modification known as a bump stock is being decided by the Supreme Court in a case known as Garland versus Cargill. But justices are divided over the case, and the fate of the weapon modification is unknown. We talked to local gun store owners about their perspectives on the case and the controversy surrounding the bump stock.
Banned in 2018, bump stocks became the subject of national controversy following the reported use of the device in the 2017 Las Vegas shooting. But gun store owners say it's more of a political spectacle than a genuine interest in public safety.
To me, the boom stock ban is just something to throw out there to make the anti-gun people happy. That, whoa, the administration, the government's doing something.
Well, it's the shell game. They're always trying to, look over here while I'm taking and pillaging with this hand. This is what the left and the media does, and they're just kind of smoke screening us with, we're fighting this over here while they're over here, doing all kinds of stupid stuff.
But what exactly is a bump stock, and how does it work? It's an attachment which replaces a rifle's standard stock and utilizes the firearm's recoil to bump against the operator's finger, enabling rapid semi-automatic fire without having to squeeze the trigger more than once. We reached out to gun control organizations for comment, but didn't receive a response. But according to one such organization's website, bump stocks are devices that are designed and intended to convert semi-automatic firearms into machine guns. By clarifying that bump stocks are machine guns, the ATF is properly interpreting federal law. But gun store owners say it's not the killer modification that gun control advocates and the government claim it to be.
Bump stock is just help you to fire rapidly faster than normally you can pull your trigger. But when you do that, you lost the ability to aim and you lost your accuracy. But for a real gun owner, bump stock is a joke. It's not going to do anything more. And I'm not going to online and tell you how it can be more effective to hurt people, but I only can tell you the boom stock will not hurt. It's not effective. It's a joke.
If the bump stock isn't as effective as gun control advocates claim it to be, we asked why Second Amendment activists were intent on reversing its federal ban.
When you give the left an inch, they always go for 5 miles. And so you have to fight tooth and nail with everything that you do with them in order that they don't overstep and try and take other things.
One customer highlighted the legal concerns raised over including the device under the federal machine gun law.
I don't know why it would be federally banned if it's not complicated and it doesn't turn a semi-automatic weapon into a Class 3 automatic firearm. The debate over it's really very unfortunate because most of the testimony I hear coming out of Congress or other places, they get everything manifestly wrong about their discussion of firearms, how they work, what it means. I mean, they make statements that confound the laws of physics. And I don't think if it's an important issue, you need to make things up. I think you can just discuss the issue and then the public can decide.
Legal battles over the bump stock have occurred since its ban went into effect, when in 2019, the Supreme Court supported the restriction by denying a gun rights group's request to temporarily block the ban. Despite legal precedent, whether the court will rule against or in favor of the controversial device is anyone's guess. BJ Kang, NTD News, California.
The U.S. Justice Department said yesterday it reached a multi-million-dollar settlement with the sexual assault victims of Larry Nassar. He was convicted of sexually assaulting athletes when he was a physician with USA Gymnastics. Some of his victims reached a $380 million settlement with USA Gymnastics and the U.S. Olympic Committee in 2021. Over 100 women and girls also sued the DOJ over the FBI's initial failures in investigating the case. Now the DOJ will pay those victims almost $139 million in this settlement. A report by the DOJ's internal watchdog uncovered widespread errors by the FBI, including failing to promptly interview potential victims and violating multiple FBI policies. The Justice Department opted not to bring criminal charges against the agents involved in the probe. Nassar is serving up to 175 years in prison for the abuse.
How does communism influence the Western world, especially the U.S.? Reporting by NTD and the Epoch Times has revealed communist subversion in America, but how far has it gone? An author I spoke to says the cultural Marxist takeover is threatening American children and the church. Here is Julie Beeling, the writer and producer of Beneath Sheep's Clothing.
Well, I focus on Beneath Sheep's Clothing on the cultural subversion of the U.S. And I mean, I don't have to tell you guys at Epoch Times, but this has been going on for a century here in America. And we focus on, for Beneath Sheep's Clothing, the schools and the inroads into the schools and also into the churches, unfortunately, and what we can do to push back against this and to wake people up.
So first, unpack what's happening in U.S. schools right now.
Well, you know, it goes way back. Right now, we're in the end stages of a cultural Marxist takeover of our children, unless we're either pulling our kids out of the schools or we're specifically teaching our kids what to look for so they don't fall for it. I mean, this communist takeover started with the universities in terms of education. And then the colleges of education were overtaken by 1992. The teachers coming out then are reproducing this socialist framework to their students. And now we have the woke Marxist revolution, of course, with all the CRT, the queer Marxism, but then we also have the social and emotional learning that is specifically, it's using Maoist brainwashing techniques to take the Judeo-Christian as the foundational ideology of our children, delete that, insert woke Marxism, DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion, as the new foundational ideology of our children. This is setting them up to embrace Marxism, and we just simply can't allow this to happen.
We've seen a lot of parents bring forth much pushback to that type of ideology and that CRT and so forth. What should parents do to protect their kids?
Well, I mean, I have a 9-year-old and I homeschool him. I know that not everyone can homeschool, but at the very least, parents need to become very, very aware of these agendas and to be able to explain them to their children and to inoculate their children against these influences. But pulling them out of the schools is be even better. We also have to be aware of our churches. that have been infiltrated. And this infiltration, in the Soviet Union, they infiltrated the churches with KGB agents that went in posing as clergy and rose up within the ranks of the churches to change the churches from within. A similar thing has happened, not with KGB agents necessarily, but with avowed communists beginning over a century ago. And we need to root these Marxist ideologies out of our churches as well.
Wow, Julie, yeah, I'm so glad that you're able to bring a light to that. And I will point out that PolitiFact had the article that was alleging that Chinese communists have grabbed control of U.S. entertainment and movies, and it gave them a pants on fire rating for that claim, saying that it was false. But of course, we here at NTD put out the documentary Hollywood Takeover, exposing the CCP's influence in Hollywood and how it's distorting American minds there. So is there a way to bring more awareness to this issue, and how important is it?
I mean, it's crucial. If we're going to save our country, we have to save our culture. And if we're going to save our culture, we have to get rid of these Marxist ideologies from overtaking our culture, whether it's the media, education, or the schools, and the war on the family as well. People need to become aware. Probably a lot of your viewers are aware. We need to wake up our family members and our friends. I hope that Beneath Sheep's Clothing will be a tool that people can use to do that, to awake people and to wake themselves further.
Well, thank you so much for your time today. Julie Beeling, writer and producer of Beneath Sheep's Clothing.
Thanks so much.
Up next, new labor rules from the Department of Labor and FTC could potentially improve overtime pay. How this could affect you and your paycheck.
Looking for a healthy and smooth-tasting brew? Drop by Days Coffee Roasters today and explore our wide selection of specialty-grade, small-batch roasted coffee. Home to North America's first enzyme-fermented coffee, we source a wide selection of specialty-grade coffee beans from around the world, and our baristas are ready to craft your customized brew. Visit Days Coffee at 28 North Street, Middletown, New York. Come experience a brew like no other.
Water, nature's ultimate cleaner. We drink it, we bathe in it. Think water, think steam, think clean. Now harness the power of water with the H2O X5 5-in-1 steam cleaning system.
I'm so impressed with the X5. It's an all-in-one product. I can use it throughout my entire house.
It's cleaning, it's sanitizing, there's no chemicals in it. It's just steam.
This is unbelievable. There is no more odor. You could spend over $500 to purchase the products that the X5 5-in-1 Miracle replaces. Order your H2O X5 steam cleaning system, a $500 value, for just 4 easy payments of $43. Order now and we'll upgrade your X5 package. We'll add a 6th mode with a dusting and polishing wand. Valued at over $30, this extra bonus attachment makes your H2O X5 the H2O X6. That means your 10-piece system becomes a 12-piece system at no extra cost to you. All for just 3 easy payments of $43. Call or click right now.
American, and then you come home and you're Honduran.
Totally relate to that. Like, it's like double personality kind of thing.
Thanks for joining us. Joining us now also is NTD's Business Matters host, Don Ma, to give us the latest updates from the financial world.
Let's go to the airlines first, Don.
Yep, first update is on Boeing. And what that's about is apparently a labor complaint reveals allegations that Boeing actually retaliated against 2 of its engineers. So the 2 employees at the time were working on behalf of the Federal Aviation Administration to provide manufacturing oversight. And they raised concerns about engineering work on Boeing's 777 and 787 aircraft. Boeing initially pushed back against redoing the work before agreeing to do it. Now a union representing Boeing engineers has filed a complaint and they're alleging that the company retaliated against the 2 employees in their performance reviews. Now, the union says the negative reviews could harm the engineers when it comes to promotions, or as well as could subject them to layoffs. So Boeing is saying that it's investigated the incident, but its report could only be shared with the FAA. And the union is trying to appeal a decision not to change the performance evaluation of one of the workers. In a press release, the union said the other worker quit Boeing over the way he was treated. The FAA says it's still investigating this situation.
It's not getting any better for Boeing, but it's good that those things come to light. Let's move on to some potentially more positive news. Millions of salaried workers will soon be qualifying for overtime pay.
Yeah, potentially good news indeed. So what's happening here is this new rule. It was released by the Labor Department yesterday. And basically it says it wants to raise the salary threshold in 2 stages. Let me explain here. So it's going to start at $43,888 annually, or $844 weekly on July 1st, and it's going to increase to around $58,000 annually, or $1,000 around that weekly on January 1st, 2025. So basically what's happening here, anyone making less than the threshold that I just mentioned now are going to qualify, and that means about 4 million more workers will be eligible for overtime, according to the Labor Department. So in its first year, the new rule is going to result in $1.5 billion more for workers, directly and indirectly. That is because of this rule. The agency says the salary threshold will be updated every 3 years, starting July 1st, 2027. And business groups are expected to fight the effort, no surprise here, as they successfully did when the Obama administration attempted to significantly hike the threshold. Trade associations quickly pushed back on the latest proposal when it was released in August, saying that it would raise their members' costs and hurt their operations.
Don, the Department of Labor says with this, they're trying to help workers get time back with their families. The Federal Trade Commission, though, has approved a new rule. What's that all about?
Right. So this new rule approved by the FTC, it's going to ban non-compete agreements commonly signed by workers, citing the limitation on worker mobility and wage suppression. So non-compete agreement prohibits a person from working in the same industry or starting a competing business for a certain period after leaving a current job. And some business groups are criticizing the rule, claiming that non-compete agreements are essential to protect trade secrets and encourage competitiveness. Several states have already banned or limited non-compete agreements. The rule is going to take effect in August, and it's going to require companies to eliminate existing non-compete agreements and inform employees that they will not be enforced.
Well, understandable that, it's risky for companies. On the other hand, though, it can create such few options for job seekers that switch jobs that employers could potentially lower their wages by so far because they don't really have the job seekers don't really have that bargaining power. So I think that is it for today. Thank you so much, Don Ma, host of NTD's Business Matters. I appreciate it.
Yeah, of course. Thank you very much for having me today.
Thanks, Don. Stay with us. An award-winning film depicting a nationwide persecution in China was screened on Capitol Hill. The movie tells the story of university students who risked their lives to expose a brutal campaign by the Chinese regime.
A performance that truly matters. for each and every one of us. This is what you've been waiting for. Coming to Lincoln Center, NJ-PAC, State Theater, Purchase, and Stamford. Starting March 28th. Tickets at shenyun.com.
According to Marx, everything must be seen through the lens of oppressor and oppressed. Our property rights have continued to get weaker. The threat of these takings is no longer just for public use, but also for better use. This means that the government can't force the exchange of property from one private citizen to another private citizen. Now, this is nowhere near the Founding Fathers' intentions. We now have a record share of Americans that have never been married, I being one of them. In fact, the median age of a first marriage has never been higher. Now, you may be thinking this is only affecting single adults. Well, not exactly. According to Pew Research, 1 in 4 parents living with their child are unmarried. And let's take a look at how many children are currently living with either one parent or no parent.
The 2024 NTD Night International Chinese Vocal Competition is scheduled to take place at Merkin Hall, Kaufman Music Center in New York from September 18th to 21st. The competition specially invites vocalists from the world-famous Shen Yun Performing Arts to serve as judges. The prestigious Gold Award is $10,000. Chinese vocal artists aged 18 to 50 are welcome to register.
All right, I'm at the house, and I'm gonna head inside. Okay, come on, this door. I'm in the house.
What do you see?
Let me check the den. There's nothing in the den. Let me check the kitchen. There's no one downstairs, it looks like.
Wait, what was that?
I don't know. Let me head upstairs.
What do you see?
What the? Did you shut this bathroom door?
No.
Oh,
What?
It's not here.
What do you mean?
The gun's not here.
What? Where is it?
Oh my God.
What's going on?
Cam.
Oh my God, what's going
Cameron, are you in there? Open the door. Cam, please, please, open the door, Cameron. Come on, Cam.
Thank you for staying with us. An award-winning film depicting China's human rights abuses has hit the big screen on Capitol Hill.
It delves into the life of a student at an elite Chinese university who risked his life and career to expose a nationwide persecution. NTD's Sam Wong has more.
Chinese government's own estimate is...
On Tuesday, the award-winning film Unsilenced hit the big screen on Capitol Hill. Based on actual events, the movie tells the story of a group of university students who risked their lives to expose a brutal nationwide persecution by the Chinese regime. The film follows the footsteps of Wang, a Falun Gong practitioner and a jaded American journalist who finds himself lost in the industry he loves. Facing possible arrest, torture, and death, they must make a choice, remain silent, or tell the public the truth.
It probably deserves a wider distribution to let people know what the situation is in China.
I thought it was deeply informative. It was also really poignant and disturbing.
It just made me want to think about the people more in China, those who had the same belief as I do.
Falun Gong, also known as Falun Dafa, is a spiritual discipline based on the principles of truthfulness, compassion, and forbearance. On July 20th, 1999, the Chinese Communist Party launched a nationwide persecution against the group, even mobilizing state-run media to defame its teachings.
No power is allowed to exist outside the party, and that's something that's characteristic of totalitarian regimes.
Unsilenced has received a string of honors, including the Audience Award at the 2021 Austin Film Festival. Reporting from Washington, D.C., Sam Wong, NTD News.
That's an important film to show.
Yeah, might add that this is all based on true events, you know, those characters also, and it sounds incredible because, to find somebody that operates under such a strong moral compass to do what he thinks is right, even if it seems like the whole world is forcing you to do the other thing.
That's an example of true bravery right there. And if we look back in 2008, the Congressional Executive Commission on China estimated that hundreds of thousands of Falun Gong practitioners were detained in China, thrown in forced labor camps and everything like that.
Yeah, definitely worth a watch here. But we are heading to a quick break at this moment, but we'll be right back with more, so stay with us.
NTD News, the fastest growing independent news source in America, bringing you breaking news from around the world. Expert analysis, investigative reporting, and original, award-winning documentaries. We're known for our uncensored China coverage you won't find anywhere else. We cover the stories that affect you and shape our world without the political noise. We report from the heart with you in mind. Watch us right here on NTD News.
Good morning. Welcome to NTD.
Good morning. Here are today's top stories. The Senate passes a $95 billion foreign aid bill after months of delay. Hear what Senate leaders and the Pentagon had to say about aid to Ukraine.
President Biden and former President Trump cruised to victory in the Pennsylvania primaries, but the numbers reveal persisting concerns for the November election. We analyze the results.
The former boss of the National Enquirer resumed his testimony yesterday. Plus, both sides argue on whether Trump violated the gag order.
Anti-Israel demonstrations continue to spread across college campuses. A Berkeley student says Jewish students on campus feel like they have a target on their backs.
Opening a family-sized bag of chips for a quick snack can feel good in the moment, but not so good after you've finished the entire bag. We take a look at some ways you can control those junk food cravings.
This is NTD Good Morning. Live from our global headquarters, here are Evelyn Lee and Kevin Hogan.
Welcome to NTD.
Welcome. Today is Wednesday, April 23rd. 24th, that's right. Thank you. Today's top news. The Senate passed a $95 billion foreign aid package last night after months of controversy and delay.
President Biden says he's going to sign the measure today. Senators approved a bill in a measure that would force TikTok's Chinese owner to sell its U.S. assets.
The House added the TikTok bill into the package after some revisions last week. NTD's Jeremy Sandberg has more on the bill's passage.
The Senate, in a 79-18 vote Tuesday, approved 4 bills passed by the House. Senators merged the bills into one package. The $95 billion national security supplemental is mostly military aid for Ukraine, Israel, and Taiwan, and an ultimatum for TikTok. Senate Leader Chuck Schumer says the U.S. sent a message that it won't turn its back and will do everything to safeguard democracy.
We tell our allies, we stand with you. We tell our adversaries, don't mess with us.
The supplemental is $61 billion for Ukraine, roughly $26 billion for Israel, and just over $8 billion for deterrence against the Chinese Communist Party in the Indo-Pacific region. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky thanked Congress, calling the measure vital.
Alliances matter.
Senate Minority Leader McConnell declared it was time to reaffirm some basic truths.
Peace, prosperity, and security are not accidents. They're products of American leadership and American sacrifice.
Senator Mitt Romney said he wished Congress would have moved more quickly.
But Speaker Johnson got to the right place and is allowing the majority of the representatives, Republican and Democrat, to make a decision.
The Pentagon on Tuesday said the U.S. could be delivering aid to Ukraine within days.
We need to have a law first, but depending on what that aid is, and as you've seen in the past, we provide a variety of aid. Anticipating this, we're doing everything we can to lean forward.
The House added a TikTok bill to the package last week, extending a deadline for the Chinese regime-linked ByteDance to sell. A TikTok ban from U.S. app stores looms if ByteDance doesn't sell its U.S. assets. Some lawmakers felt 6 months was too short a window for a high-stake deal, moving the deadline to 9 months, with a possible 3-month extension pending a sale. The supplemental also slaps new sanctions on Iran. The aid package could be the last for Ukraine until after the general elections, when the White House, the House, and a third of the Senate are up for grabs. Jeremy Sandberg, NTD News.
All eyes on Pennsylvania, where another round of presidential primaries concluded yesterday.
Along with that, primary races for the Senate and the House. NTD's Jeremy Sandberg has the results.
Voters headed to the polls across Pennsylvania on Tuesday to cast their ballots in the 2024 primary election. Unofficial election results this morning, according to the state of Pennsylvania, show President Biden with more than 93% of the vote. Former President Trump got over 83%. Former Ambassador Nikki Haley, who dropped out of the race in March, received over 16% of the Republican vote, suggesting some Republicans are looking for an alternative to Trump. Likewise, Muslim American voters mounted an abandoned Biden campaign to protest the president's handling of the Israel-Hamas war. The organization Uncommitted PA said it was aiming for 40,000 uncommitted votes. Pennsylvania did not offer an uncommitted option on its ballot. It's currently unclear how many write-in votes were part of the movement. Biden faced similar efforts in battleground states like Michigan, Arizona, Wisconsin, and North Carolina. Biden and Trump clinched their party nominations last month, but have both campaigned heavily in Pennsylvania, a swing state crucial in both 2016 and 2020. Pennsylvania is politically divided and has a sizable number of electoral votes.
Okay, I voted for Donald Trump, Donald J. Trump, and I voted for him the last time. Was very, very disappointed because he did an excellent job. And I would vote for him again and again.
I think it's an important election. I think they all are. I think this one in particular, we've got to keep Trump out. I wish we had two different candidates to choose from, but the ones that we have are what we have, and I'm happy to vote for Biden.
Further down the ballot, voters also selected nominees in competitive primaries for Congress, the state legislature, and 3 statewide offices. There was a particular focus on Pennsylvania's 12th district, where Democratic Congresswoman Summer Lee defeated a primary challenger. Lee has been a fierce critic of Biden's support for Israel. Meanwhile, incumbent Senator Bob Casey, a Democrat, and his Republican challenger Dave McCormick were both unopposed in their primaries. The November race is expected to be close and could help decide if Democrats retain control of the Senate. Jeremy Sandberg, NTD News.
Let's delve further into the results of some House primaries in Pennsylvania that may have a big impact on Congress with Terry Schilling. He's the president of the American Principles Project. Good morning to you, Terry. Let's talk about Pennsylvania's 7th district first. Democratic Congresswoman Susan Wild will go up against Republican candidate State Rep Ryan McKenzie. Could this prove to be a pivotal race considering that Wild won by just 2 points in the midterms?
That's exactly right. And thank you guys so much for having me. This is an important race. McKenzie is a state rep. He was actually outspent in the primary by 2-1 but he ran on an America First platform, very similar to Donald Trump's. He focused on securing the border and fighting illegal immigration, but he also ran a very strong campaign against DEI and ESG. He supports parental rights. And so going into this general election, I think we could be in for an upset. It's going to come down to how much money is raised and whether or not McKenzie can keep his eye on the ball.
Yeah, and DEI, we could talk about that for a moment. The Ohio Senate, right after October 7th, was blaming that for the anti-Semitism that's gripping these college campuses here. Onto the 12th district, which is Pittsburgh, where Progressive Representative Summer Lee beat an Edgewood Borough Council member. What impact will this have?
Well, this is a very important race, and it was flying under the radar for a lot of people. But the significance of this is that Summer Lee is part of the squad, and she is extremely progressive. She supports DEI. She supports the transgender agenda. But most importantly, at the center of this race was her her opposition to support for Israel. Her opponent, Bhavani Patel, was strongly running ads against her for her support for the enemies of Israel. But it turns out that Summer Lee won 60% to 40%. This is it's significant because it tells us that the Democratic Party base is not looking to moderate. They are looking to go further and further into the progressive stream. And so you can continue to expect the Democratic Party to get more and more left wing.
Next, Terry, how do we expect Pennsylvania to affect the balance of power in the House?
Well, look, there's some really important swing districts. That District 7 is important. There was House District 1 with Brian Fitzpatrick, that he had a more conservative challenger. But Brian Fitzpatrick, I would have loved to have had the more conservative guy, Mark Houck, who's a real pro-life, pro-family champion, win. But we got to keep the House majority, and races like that are going to determine it. So I think you look at the House District 1, House District 7, and that could ultimately tip the balance of power. We have a 1-seat majority in the House, right? So it's important to win every single House seat we can.
Okay, now what about the Senate, the balance of power there, especially considering that Casey and McCormick are facing off in what's expected to be a tight race?
Well, that's a very important race as well. As you know, it's very slim in the Senate also. But listen, Bob Casey Jr. is the son of longtime political legend, Bob Casey Sr. And Bob Casey Sr. was a moderate Democrat. He was pro-life, pro-family, and pro-worker. And his son couldn't be further from that legacy. Pennsylvania is a working-class state. It's a pro-family state. And Dave McCormick is pro-worker and he's pro-family. So I think Dave McCormick has an excellent shot at a major upset this year. But ultimately, I think the turnout and the results are going to be driven by the top of the ticket, which is Joe Biden versus Donald Trump. And we all know that that's going to be very, very slim across the country this year in Pennsylvania.
Thanks for contributing this morning. Terry Schilling, the president of the American Principles Project.
Thank you.
And yesterday was day 6 of the historic campaign finance trial against former President Trump.
The former National Enquirer boss returned to the stand, but not before both sides argued about the prosecution's bid for gag order sanctions. NTD's Daniel Monahan has takeaways from the day's proceedings.
Former President Trump's so-called hush money trial resumed Tuesday, with former National Enquirer executive David Pecker continuing his testimony for the prosecution. Pecker was on the stand for more than 2 hours. He described to the jury how the Enquirer used its so-called catch-and-kill strategy to ensure negative stories about Trump never got published. Pecker said Trump and his former lawyer Michael Cohen reached an agreement with the paper in 2015 to reject any bad stories aimed at Trump and instead run negative stories about his rivals. Pecker told jurors that he told Trump he would inform Cohen about anything negative that might make it to the presses so that it would not get published. Pecker revealed a chain of command that started with Michael Cohen, who would direct him to tell the paper's then-editor, Dylan Howard, quote, on which direction we should go. This agreement, Pecker said, was highly confidential. The prosecution is also expected to call Michael Cohen to testify against Trump. Trump's attorney on Tuesday said Cohen has, quote, an obsession with Trump and asked jurors to treat his testimony with skepticism. Before testimony resumed, the judge held a hearing to determine whether some of Trump's social media posts violated the court's gag order. Judge Merchan did not accept Trump's lawyer's argument that the former president's posts about witnesses were political and had nothing to do with the case. Merchan has not yet ruled. The prosecution has asked for a $1,000 fine for each violation. Trump, after the day's proceedings, called the gag order unconstitutional.
It's totally unconstitutional. I'm not allowed to talk, but people are allowed to talk about me. So they can talk about me, they can say whatever they want, they can lie, but I'm not allowed to say anything.
The trial will resume on Thursday. Daniel Monahan, NTD News.
Former President Trump hosted former Japanese Prime Minister Taro Aso at Trump Tower in New York yesterday.
During the reception, Trump sent a message to the people of Japan.
It's a great country. You're doing very well. Shinzo was a great friend of mine. He was truly a great man and somebody that we all respected and we really loved. And I miss him greatly.
Shinzo Abe, who Trump mentioned, was the former prime minister who was assassinated in 2022. Trump formed a close relationship with him during his presidency.
Japan has been trying to connect with people close to Trump ahead of the November election. There are concerns that if he wins, the former president could reinstate protectionist trade measures or take other steps that could hurt the Japanese economy.
Moving on, guns in school could soon be a reality in Tennessee.
A bill that gives teachers the ability to be armed in school passed the State House yesterday.
The bill requires educators who want to have concealed weapons to pass a background check and have 40 hours of firearms safety training. School employees will also have to have psychological evaluations and additional training on an annual basis.
The Tennessee Senate previously passed the bill, and it now heads to Governor Bill Lee's desk for his signature, which is expected.
About half of U.S. states allow teachers or other employees with concealed carry permits to carry guns on school property in some form.
Gun control advocates in Tennessee opposed the bill. The move comes just over a year after a shooter killed 3 children and 3 adults at a Christian school in Nashville. Up next, anti-Israel demonstrations continue to spread across college campuses. A Berkeley student says Jewish students on campus feel like they have a target on their backs.
Achieving that healthy weight goal is something millions of Americans are chasing, but are held back by cravings for junk food. We take a look at how to kick those habits to the curb.
When I drink it, the first thing was I feel the warmth in my tummy. It's kind of like gently radiating out, a kind of a very comforting warmth. And it was really good, actually. I felt much better. I did feel, actually, an effect. And I find that it is actually better when I take it regularly.
It's actually steamed and dried 9 times. And so it's really, the essence is really extracted.
Then a second time, I tried it really like on an empty stomach and just 2 teaspoons of it, and over a few times. And wow, that was a big difference, because suddenly I could feel, wow, I was very good energized. I didn't have to eat. I could work outside in the garden for a couple of hours, and I still felt very well. And I was impressed by that. So I think it's a good product.
I'm Jonathan Lawson. If you're 50 to 85, I have an important message about security. Write down the number on your screen so you can call when I finish. The lock I want to talk to you about isn't the one on your door. This is a lock for your life insurance, a rate lock that guarantees that once you're insured, your rate can never go up at any time for any reason. But be careful. Many policies you see do not have one. But you can get a lifetime rate lock from Colonial Penn. Call this number to learn more. This plan was designed with a rate lock for people on a fixed income who want life insurance that fits their budget and is simple to get. Coverage options start at $9.95 a month, less than 35 cents a day. Act now, and your rate will be locked in for life. It will never increase, guaranteed. This is lifelong coverage that can never be canceled as long as you pay your premiums, guaranteed. And your acceptance is guaranteed, with no health questions. You cannot be turned down because of your health. Call for your information kit and read about this rate lock for yourself. You'll also get a free beneficiary planner. Both are free with no obligation. Don't miss out. Call for information, then decide. Read about the 30-day 100% money-back guarantee. Don't wait. Call this number now.
Call now and you'll also get this free beneficiary planner. Use this valuable guide to record important information and your final wishes, and it's yours free just for calling. So don't wait. Call 1-800-357-4821 for your free information. That's 1-800-357-4821. There's no risk or obligation. That number again is 1-800-357-4821. That's 1-800-357-4821. 1-800-357-4821. Call now.
Thanks for staying with us. Anti-Israel protests have continued to spread to more college campuses. This after mass arrests at similar demonstrations at a handful of mostly East Coast colleges in recent days.
NTD's Daniel Monahan has more on the expanding protests. which have now reached the Midwest and California.
In the Midwest on Tuesday, a demonstration on the University of Michigan campus grew to nearly 40 tents, and 9 anti-Israel protesters at the University of Minnesota were arrested after police took down an encampment in front of the library. On the West Coast, California State Polytechnic University announced that its campus would be closed through Wednesday after demonstrators occupied a building Monday night. 3 protesters were arrested. Also in California at Berkeley, demonstrators have set up an encampment where they vow to remain until demands are met. Those include the university canceling all contracts with any Israeli college or companies connected to arms suppliers and formally recognizing Israel's actions as genocide. Jewish Berkeley law student Milton Zerman says Israeli students on campus feel like they have a target on their backs.
That's clear ethnic discrimination. It's discrimination on the basis of nationality, and I think it's disgraceful.
In Massachusetts, over 20 tents with pro-Palestine signage were set up at Massachusetts Institute of Technology Tuesday morning. The tents display numerous Palestinian flags and signs demanding MIT stop providing, quote, support for the Israeli occupation forces. Meanwhile, Harvard University in Massachusetts has tried to stay ahead of protests by locking most gates into its famed Harvard Yard and limiting access to those with school identification. Critics of the protests, including prominent Republican members of Congress, have stepped up accusations of anti-Semitism, harassment, and calls for violence by protesters. Columbia University students came back for in-person classes in Manhattan on Tuesday, but demonstrators on the campus continue to occupy the West Lawn. They are calling on the university to cancel the funding of projects connected to Israel. This masked student, who would only identify herself as W, used inflammatory language to describe Israel.
This is what we are here for, calling for an end to genocide and for Columbia to financially divest from the violent Zionist settler entity.
The expanding protests included hundreds of demonstrators gathered near Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer's home on Tuesday. The gathering was organized by the Jewish Voice for Peace group.
Senator Schumer, your Jewish constituents and the vast majority of the U.S. demands stop arming Israel! Stop arming Israel!
Following speeches, protesters moved to block the streets surrounding Grand Army Plaza, and several were arrested by NYPD officers. Daniel Monahan, NTD News.
It's really becoming very widespread.
And it's highly worrying to see that, there is protesters that among them that actually praise Hamas and Iran ideology. I think it's a slippery slope going into extremism.
Hamas is a terrorist group here, and we see Speaker Johnson planning a visit to Columbia today to speak with Jewish students here. And he's just saying that this becomes so dangerous that Jewish students are forced out of the classroom.
Right.
They're supposed to learn in that environment.
And we want to note here that before, Columbia students also have said that there were groups showing up that were not affiliated with students or the student groups. So we want to pay attention because we have seen in previous protests, right, that there's opportunist groups that take advantage and they are fueling these kind of divisive politics. And that's definitely something that we want to pay attention to.
Yeah, a really important part to note. And then a rabbi with a director at one of the organizations at Columbia is just saying that this is just terrible and tragic, what's happening to those Jewish students.
Yeah, for sure. All right. Let's move away from such heavy topics because in today's health matters, it's a huge hurdle for many health goals, food cravings standing in the way of healthy weight loss.
And experts say emotions can play a critical role in what we choose to eat. But you can stay on a healthy track. Let's take a look at some ways to control your junk food cravings.
If you're craving something sweet or salty instead of something fresh and healthy, you're not alone.
Our emotions do impact how we eat. That's why they're called comfort foods. Stress, anxiety, sadness, anger, even boredom can trigger these harmful eating habits like overeating, poor food choices.
Dr. Sanjay Gupta says when we have intense feelings like stress, our bodies make hormones that make us want to seek out comfort food. But he says there are ways to control those cravings.
Find an outlet for your stress. Exercise, nature walks, meditation, time with family and friends.
Gupta says you can also take a tea break. Sipping tea can also help emotional cravings, or try eating what he calls busy snacks.
That means foods that keep your hands moving, popcorn, vegetables, and a healthy dip.
Gupta says to pre-portion favorite snacks to avoid overeating them. Keep tempting snacks out of reach or don't buy them at all. And if all else fails, talk to a doctor.
No shame in seeking help. If what you're doing isn't working, talk to a professional about your emotions and how they might be impacting your dietary choices.
Good tips. I mean, there's stress eaters and then there's stress undereaters. I have to say I was probably the first. But yeah, I mean...
A good bowl of ice cream makes you feel great, I know.
Yeah, or chips, or gummy bears, or anything. Actually, well, you know what? It's just, I love junk. That's the bottom line.
But not as good as a really nice vegetable stew makes you feel.
That's right, because the next morning when I wake up, I feel tired, or but thankfully that is mostly in the past now, and I think that those were really good tips. So yeah, gotta make sure you stay healthy.
Yeah, that's always a good idea. Let's keep in mind, Health Direct says that if you eat too much junk food, that can lead to certain types of cancers, even osteoporosis. That's when the bones get really weak and brittle, so you want to just avoid that.
Yeah, God knows what's in today's, what ingredients are in today's,
If you can't pronounce it, you probably should stay away.
Exactly. All right. That's our tips for today, and we have to wrap up our show now, but be sure to stay tuned for NTD's News Today broadcast at 10 a.m. Eastern Time coming up.
And for round-the-clock original news coverage, visit us at ntd.com or download our NTD app.
That's right. Thanks for watching. I'm Evelyn Lee.
And I'm Kevin Hogan.
Is your shower trying to tell you something? Is getting in and out of the bathtub becoming a safety concern? Are you worried about the cost of a bathroom remodel that could go on for weeks and weeks? Well, now